Hello, today I'm going to be addressing the age old question of why me? It's a question that many experiencers ask themselves, and it's a question that many people that aren't experiencers ask them in regards to why they have contact, why they have visitations, why they might have been abducted at some point. And there are three kind of big, what I would consider logical reasons or theories that have kind of sprung up for reasons why people are contacted. And then there's kind of one more far fetched theory that's kind of been out there that I'll touch upon at the end. So, the first really big theory that is out there, and it seems to have a lot of substantial evidence behind it, is that a lot of non human intelligence contact occurs because of genetic or familial lines. You can ask a ton of experiencers, like, have your parents or have your relatives, your siblings, just anybody that you know within your family line had contact of some sort. Um, while a lot of people might not be able to say, yes, I've heard from one of my parents or a brother or sister that they have seen aliens of some sort, like a gray or a mantid or what have you. But a lot of people could say, well, my my mother or my grandmother or my great aunt or somebody within my family had psychic abilities, or they considered themselves to be a medium, like they could see spirit, they could see shadow people. In my own case, my father saw shadow people, and my mother has seen apparitions throughout her life. So while for me personally, it does make a lot of sense. It makes sense to a lot of people. I would say the majority of experiencers, if you talk to them about oddities in their life and the supernatural, the paranormal, at some point they could think of something that's happened within their household or to another family member that kind of sticks out as being um, not really tied to like our kind of material reality. There's something that's going on where they have a type of perception or their own outright contact with NHI. And so there are a few researchers that have looked into this. So famously, Dr. Gary Nolan, he is, I believe, a biologist at Stanford University School of Medicine. So even though right now he's primarily working on cancer, he has also done a lot of research into like the experiencer brain. He was able to find out, if you look at the Karate Putamen, that there is a similarity between experiencers, that there's like extra development in that area of the brain. There's just like a lot of extra neurological connections that don't exist in people that don't consider themselves experiencers. And I believe that he was able to see that does kind of continue along family lines. So a parent or a sibling might also have that same overdevelopment of that one area of the brain. Um, and something else that he noticed is that experiencers are kind of drawn together somehow. So one experiencer that has this development in the brain might have been drawn at a young age to another experiencer that had this happen in the brain. And then they're creating children that have these kinds of genetic changes. Um, so that really stands out in my mind of like what is going on there, and like how are these people brought together. It almost seems like fated or destined that people are meant to find each other that have these kind of unique brain changes specifically so that they can have contact together, have children that have contact. And then there's also Dr. Dean Radin, who is a parapsychologist, and he worked at Bell Labs, I believe, Princeton, and the University of Edinburgh. And even though there's like a lot of skepticism around his work, he would talk about kind of the research that he's done into those that have psychic gifts, just any kind of extrasensory perception. And what he found is that in family lines that go far back into like Christian heritage, that there was less kind of ESP or psychic development among those communities, those bloodlines. And his theory is that during the Crusades, anybody that was considered like a witch or a heathen or what have you, that they were kind of taken out of society and disappeared. And because of that, they didn't continue their genetic lineage. And as a result of that, you had less people that were gifted, I suppose. And again, it's worth mentioning that people that are gifted, that consider themselves to be psychic, that consider themselves to be mediums or have extra abilities that the general population doesn't seem to have, they are the ones that have the most contact with non-human intelligence. And to just touch on my life again, I have a grandmother who her family fled from Russia due to Jewish persecution. So that whole part of my family line is Ashkenazi Jew. And there is a theory that that kind of lineage might have more, again, like ESP, psychic type of capabilities, and maybe other parts of the population. Not saying that everybody that has that kind of bloodline is having contact, or that they do have these abilities of like clairvoyance or clairaudience, but just that it's seen in a higher percentage of the population, just because they were not eliminated during crusades. It was like they were their own like kind of like pocket society. Um, and then another theory that is kind of really logical, at least in my mind, for why people are contacted, is that there were spiritual plans made prior to incarnation that somebody would have contact. So anybody that's watched a lot of near-death experience stories knows that we all have life plans. We have all of our lives kind of saved in the Akashic records, and possibly even the future life plans that we've made that haven't happened yet. Those are all saved and stored somewhere. It's all predetermined. And there's this idea that in life plans that there could be these big moments of contact that are built into them, and it's like if you're going to have a spiritual journey as a major mission in your life, that will be placed into your plans and kind of worked through with non-human intelligence of some sort. So Susie Hansen, she has a book called The Dual Soul Connection, and she was either told or recollected that she made pre-birth plans to kind of have this non-human intelligence, like a gray, an alien, that would kind of see through her eyes and kind of be able to experience what she was experiencing at the same time that she was like living her life. And so throughout her life, like she kind of always had this presence that something was there, but then she had memories come back of like being on craft and like kind of being taken out of body and realizing that she was making plans actively while she was alive to do certain things or not do certain things, or to make changes in her life that the non-human intelligence thought would be beneficial for her, or um, just in general, like it just changes they wanted her to do. And so those were all things that she agreed upon. It was all of her own free will before she came to this life, and during her life. And yeah, so these kind of spiritual plans being a reason for contact. I can't say that that happens for everybody, but there's definitely a percentage of experiencers that can recall that they agreed to have these interactions for a spiritual purpose. My friend Jeff Silver, if you've heard of him, he also kind of remembered being given this choice of, we can work with you and give you information, or we cannot. Like it's completely up to you. And so again, that would be another example of spiritual plans being made and contact happening, because there's kind of like a joint mission going on there. Another theory that kind of exists and has been cited by a lot of people is that a lot of people have been given contact or experienced contact as a wrong place, wrong time type of scenario. So Travis Walton, he is the famous kind of abductee from Fire in the Sky. So that movie is not entirely accurate. It was made to be a horror movie and be really engaging. And so his story did happen, but it wasn't exactly like what happened in the film. But when he was abducted, he was working with I was going to say a lot of his friends, but he wasn't really friendly with a few people that he was with. But he was with his coworkers, and he was ending a shift, and they saw this big craft and beam of light, and so they stopped the truck that they were in, and Travis got out, and everybody was yelling at him like no, don't go, don't go near it. And he kind of got hit by the beam of light, or he got somehow impacted by the radiation from the craft, and he was taken on board and healed. So famously in the craft, it shows Travis having like this kind of film placed over him. And while that didn't happen, he said that he was placed like on a table in order to kind of be fixed, be healed. And the sensation that he had is that like something came upon him where like he couldn't move, and he had trouble breathing. And so it was almost like this full body paralysis that happened. Um, but his belief is that if he hadn't gotten out of the car, if he hadn't approached the craft, that he would not have had contact. Um, so that is, at least in my mind, it is up for debate as to whether he wouldn't have had contact or not, because to this day, there are rumors that Travis still has contact, and not just related to checking in on his healing or checking in on his body. He has actual full contact and communications with the beings that he saw. Um, but as it stands now, when he goes on interviews and people ask, why you? Why did this happen to you? He kind of just says, like, bad circumstances. If I hadn't gotten out of the truck, none of this would have happened, and I would have kept on living my life like a normal person. And there are other people that have made similar comments where they say they were driving down a lonely highway with nobody else around, and they saw orbs out in the distance over the mountains, or they saw just like some large craft hovering over a field, and pretty much like stop their car to get a closer look, maybe try to take pictures with their phone, and then the next thing they know, they are kind of in the middle of being contacted, having a full visitation that they were not anticipating having. Um, so again, you have a lot of people that just self-admitted believe that there's no real reason why they would have been contacted, except for the fact that they just happened to be someplace that the non-human intelligence was. And then the kind of last far-fetched theory that I have heard for why people are contacted is because of future humans. um, so there's a lot of talk, especially lately, especially over the past year, about how aliens, especially like tall grays, are possibly us from the future. If there's research that their heads would be larger just because of due to evolution, our muscles would kind of atrophy and get thinner. Just because we have a better understanding of nutrition, what our bodies need, we would get a lot thinner. And just all signs point to the idea that tall grays are what we would look like in the future. And so there's this notion that if they are us from the future and they are coming back and contacting us, that they are choosing people to contact based on kind of like the life, I was going to say life circumstances, but maybe perhaps the life events or like the major kind of like world impacts certain people are making. So there's not so much a focus on this is your bloodline, these are your genetics, and this is your lineage. Like it's not necessarily that reason why uh, a gray or some type of non-human intelligence would come back to talk to you. It's more so looking at what you have done, like just you personally have done in your life, or looking a little bit into the future at like what you will be doing. And so they come back to contact you, visit you, or possibly abduct you because they want to change or hone in or meddle with what exactly it is that you've been doing or are planning on doing in your life. So I would say in like circumstances of if somebody works for like a certain military contractor, or they might just be a researcher that's looking into experiencers. Uh, those people, even if they didn't have like these genetic ties to um, extrasensory perception or like clairaudient or clairvoyant abilities, and they didn't make any kind of life plans for for having major contact with non-human intelligence for a spiritual reason, they might still get contacted, just because the aliens or the NHI, they see like what kind of impact you're going to have on the world, and they're saying, well, maybe it would have been better if you had done this. Maybe it would have been better if you had talked to this person and carried out these little tasks. And so they might be making like little tiny tweaks in your life in order to kind of have the butterfly effects that they want you to have to kind of make this world better. Yeah, I think that is kind of like really it. I mean, I know there's a million different theories that are out there from all different people, and there could probably be another 5 kind of fringe theories that I could add to this video, but I think I'll stop there. If you have had any kind of contact or communications yourself from NHI, from aliens, from any possible researchers that you've spoken to, or any articles that you've read about what you personally think that you might be experiencing if you are an experiencer, or what you think might be going on. If you're a skeptic and you've thought a lot about this topic, please let me know, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.